afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining Cannabis License Experts and our team of and panelists of extensive expertise that we've brought in to explain cannabis industry experts for Massachusetts. And I'm just going to start by allowing everyone to give an introduction to themselves and the organizations that they work with, and then we'll hop into a lot of questions and information. So let's start with Dario Boyce.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dario Boyce. I am a project manager and designer at Anderson Porter Design, an architecture firm based out of Cambridge, Mass. We've been in the cannabis space for at least the last 10 years. Me personally, I've been at the firm going on 7 years this year, with my primary focus being on the cannabis industry.
Thank you very much, Dario. And Jenna Rumpel.
Hello, thanks, Marie. I am Jenna Rumpel. I am a licensing and regulatory specialist working with CLE. My background is in licensing applications for cannabis, working with law firms primarily in California, and now branching out to the rest of the United States. And very happy to be here with the rest of this team.
And next we have Shayla White.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shayla White. I am an associate at Prince Lobel-Ty Law Firm here in Boston, where I am in the real estate practice group, and I specialize in cannabis licensing, permitting, and zoning. Prior to joining the law firm, I was the director of equity in emerging industries for the city of Boston, where I certified Boston's equity cannabis applicants.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to Derek D'Ambrosio.
Hello, my name is Derek D'Ambrosio. I'm a well-rounded entrepreneur with a passion for the cannabis industry. I'm the co-founder of Green Path Consulting Group, founding member of Cape Cod Cannabis, currently the general manager for Elevated Roots, and we're in the process of opening up our delivery services and a few social consumption lounges. I have over 20 years of experience in what I like to call the legacy market. I've been selling cannabis since I was about 15. I'm 43, so I know a thing or two about it. I'm also a successful entrepreneur in the travel, entertainment, food, and fashion industries.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Derek. And following up, we have Mario Rodriguez.
Good afternoon. Mario Rodriguez with Rossetti Protection Group. We are a security risk management company that is certified minority owned. Our organization is a cannabis security consultant. We've been in operations since 2012. And fun fact, the name Rossetti actually means Norse god of justice. So get that out of the way before anyone asks that question in the chat. But thanks for having us on.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Ms. Jillian Johnson.
Hello, everybody. So I'm a founder and owner of Simply J. We're an all-women's national accounting practice. We're currently now in 11 states. Our service range from bookkeeping, accounting, fractional CFO, strategy, forecasting. We're data cleansers. We like data. Our mission is to inspire and empower and educate on the value of money. We're very blessed. We've been servicing the cannabis industry now since 2018. We started in CBD. And again, we're synonymous with cleaning and presenting financial data and analysis. Huge challenges with bookkeeping and accounting in the cannabis industry, like every other service, and we don't shy away from those complexities. So I'm very blessed. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, so we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to start with Jenna. Can you provide an overview of the latest updates, highlights that the industry, new legislation, and what we're looking forward to seeing when it comes to social consumption?
Yeah, absolutely. So the CCC just hit its 5-year anniversary as of last year and hit a major milestone last month in terms of hitting the 4 billion mark in gross sales for adult use products. So and that is a significant jump from the middle of last summer as well. So they have some good changes going on there. New legislation has been introduced that it aims to make the industry as a whole more equitable, by establishing an equity fund that licensees can contribute to as part of their positive impact plans, and for local municipalities to prioritize equity applicants as well. We are looking forward to social consumption lounges, which is going to be exciting, I think, for this year. The pre-certifications for those are, already available, and no licenses issued yet, but they are reserved for now for equity applicants, and we're looking forward to seeing those to open up hopefully this year. Of course, there's going to be challenges going forward, but I think the outlook is going to be pretty positive in Massachusetts.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jenna. Now, Chayla, can you give me a bit of an overview, or give the group a bit of an overview on the municipal and state licensing process, just so people know what they're getting themselves into at this point?
Absolutely. So on the local level, you definitely want to figure out your siting and the siting requirements of your municipality. Every municipality is a little bit different, but there are usually zoning ordinances that will dictate where a cannabis establishment can and cannot be located. So that would be your first step. Once you do that and assemble your team, you're going to go for your HCA, which is a host community agreement, which lists the terms in which you're allowed to operate with the municipality. From there, you'll then go to the state level and file your state application, go through the CCC, Cannabis Control Commission process for licensing, where there's a background check and a lot of other hurdles that you got to cross before you get your provisional license and then your final license. During the provisional licensure process, you're able to get your building permits and do your build out, which I'm sure Dario will talk about a little bit later on, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. But the first step is really your siting. That is something that I definitely have seen applicants mess up a little bit on, and they get the idea of this property is perfect for them. This is their ideal location. And then unfortunately, sometimes the zoning doesn't work out. So you definitely want to do your homework.
Marie,
Sorry about that. I don't usually mute, but I was hearing some feedback. So sorry about that. Jillian, just because we know starting this process, financing is definitely a huge part of it. So what advice do you give startups when entering the cannabis space?
Sure. Get your ducks in a row. So hire your legal staff, hire your CPAs, get your team in place. Make sure that your legal staff and your CPA are talking, are communicating, collaborating with you, especially when you're designing your business structure, the entity structure. That's always really crucial. One of the most important things is the forecasting model. We got to forecast and see, project our sales, and I'm talking realistic sales, and account for every possible cost that will come into play. You're also looking at tax liability. So those forecasting models can get pretty complex depending on the licensing, the facility, what type of, is it cultivation, manufacturing, retail, et cetera. And it's amazing when you start small. I really, truly believe that this plant should not be mass produced. It's not corn or industrial hemp. That's my 2 cents. But especially line up your buyers before you plan to produce. Make sure that your product's already sold. That's going to be really crucial for inventory management. Yeah, thanks.
All right. So with that 2 cents, I'm going to use that to lead into Derek, who has some interesting experience, legal legacy and legal, as do a lot of people, but not quite starting at 15, I don't think. So when we're looking at kind of the craft cannabis category, what do you see as the biggest benefits to producing a craft cannabis?
Well, plant touching, like Jillian was saying, this is not like we're making tomatoes here. Cannabis does need, in my opinion, to be grown for it to be considered craft. It needs people. So plant touching people who are walking the fields every day, looking at the plants, taking care of them. It's a lot harder to grow a weed than you would expect. Anybody can grow cannabis, but it takes a lot of skill to grow craft cannabis. It's kind of like I'm not a very good cook. I could probably survive on a line at IHOP for a day, but there's no way I'm walking into a 4 or 5-star restaurant with a Michelin chef. So that's what it takes, is the Michelin style passion for it. At the end of the day, cannabis needs every single thing that every other industry needs, but it also needs plant touching people and people with culture. And if you are missing those ingredients, you're just going to be producing a lot of what we call like mids or boof. And you can grow it, but if you don't have anybody to buy it or you can't sell it, what good is it? So the market, whenever you have a new industry opening up, the people who first get into it usually are very lucky because they can sell any quality product for top dollar. And then it starts to decline and level out. The problem, what they don't understand, is most people have somebody that they've been getting their flower from. So if you can't provide those people the same quality product for around the same price, they're never going to come to your store and buy your stuff or buy your brand. So my competitors have never been a multi-state operator or another craft operator. It's always been the street and the legacy market. So when you're doing your projections, you shouldn't be projecting what the current market is. You want to project what people are really willing to pay for this product if you're going to be surviving the long term.
That is excellent advice. Thank you very much. Now, let's move into some more technical questions that pertain to kind of setting up these operations. So, Dario, can you tell us a little bit about the permitting process and kind of the HCAs, the special permits, building permits, kind of what that kind of stages are going to look like for people as they enter this new and emerging market?
Yep, gladly. So as Shayla said, the HCA host community agreement is one of the first things you need to do in order to start this entire process. So getting the buy-in from the community and really doing your due diligence and talking to the community and engaging the folks that you're going to be setting up shop in, so that they understand who you are, what you're trying to achieve for the community, the ways that you're going to give back to the community. Once you have that buy-in, from a architectural standpoint, we do look at zoning and zoning analysis. One of the first things you're probably going to do is do a site plan approval. So once you have your location, working with the civil engineer and your architects, making sure you have enough proper utilities coming to the site, proper sufficient parking on there, and where you're going to locate your mechanical units around the perimeter to ensure that you get appropriate buy-in from the municipality on your site plan. From there, or in that process, we're looking at flood zones and 100-year setbacks for particular civil types to make sure that we are good from a setback and zoning standpoint. Special permit is dependent on where you are. Some municipalities you may not have to go through special permit, but oftentimes you do, and that can be a lengthy process. Once you submit, there's a 30-day appeals period, and so the local boards can push out your special permit, especially if they have a lot of questions. So the more tight your team is, the better chances of having a short, quick special permit process you can get. Once you get your special permit, then you can file for building permit and build out your facility. So from a timeline, from a permitting standpoint, as short as 30 days on a good timeline for a special permit. But we've seen, I've seen personally 6 months. Some folks have gone through a year to get special permit. Building permit is usually a 45 day period once you get past special permit.
Okay, perfect. And Shayla, I'm going to come back to you on this one because we're hearing about the importance of business planning, having a strong team. Can you tell me what you've seen as a common mistake amongst applicants, be it equity or non-equity applicants throughout the process?
Absolutely. As Dario just said, you really do have to assemble your team. Everyone has a role. Everyone on this panel represents a discipline that is an integral part of your team if you want a successful business and if you really want to get your license. So assembling your team is absolutely the best thing you can do. I've seen applicants, especially when I was on the city side, who did not assemble a team. They thought that they could do it themselves. And you can do a lot of research yourself. But when it comes down to applying for your license, you need somebody from each one of these fields behind you to look over everything that you do and every document that you sign, just to make sure you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, be it with a partner or with a municipality. So that is one of the biggest issues I've seen. I've also seen partnerships really not form in the best ways, especially with equity applicants. There are some predatory practices in this industry, and I have seen equity applicants on the precipice of being taken advantage of. Luckily, we were able to step in and help them, but if you are in a position where you have a social equity designation for CCC, there are instances where people will come in, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a multi-state operator, but just somebody with a little bit more capital than you might have that can get you to the finish line a little bit quicker, and they will see the benefit of your license and the expedited process that you will receive as a social equity or economic empowerment applicant, and they will, try to sway the terms so that they lean in their favor as opposed to yours. So I definitely would recommend that anyone, equity or non-equity, when entering a partnership, please get a lawyer. Have them look over the terms of any agreement, operating agreement, anything that you will sign, because you want to make sure that your interests are preserved and protected.
Thank you. That is amazing advice as someone who's also watched that happen to, or come close to happening to many new startups. Having people behind you that you can trust is amazing. And in a previous life, I was a hairstylist, and I had a boss who said you cannot be perfect at everything, but you can be darn near perfect at one thing. So work with people who perfect what they do so that you have a team of perfectionists so you can have a perfect business. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for reiterating that to everyone. Now we'll get again into a little bit more of the nitty gritty when it comes to this process and some of what's involved. So Mario, when it comes to security compliance, can you provide some examples of things that are compliant with 935 CMR? And maybe give a description of what 935 CMR is for those of us who aren't as familiar.
Sure. Yeah, that's the written policy that's required from the Cannabis Commission regarding your security plan, your operations plans and procedures. And they want to see that written documentation. Your insurance company is going to ask for something very similar to that. You want to see copies of what your plans will be, so they know what their risks are too. Before I answer the rest of the question, I want to backtrack on something that Dario talked about and touched on as well. When you start having that design layout and those facility design talks and things, it's important that if you do have someone for security, to start bringing them in on those conversations early. There's a term called CPTED, which is crime prevention through environmental design. And it's a strategy that we utilize when we're going into these environments. Dario talked about some of the lighting components, some of those design fixtures. What does the environment look like? Is it something that you're taking an existing building, you're tearing it down and putting up a new structure? Will there be trees in the way? Will there be blind spots for the cameras? What does that look like? All of those are important factors when we start talking about, that design layout. And the earlier you get in front of that, the more money you actually save in the long term, so that you don't have to do all the design work, spend all this money with your designer and architect, and then come back and say, well, actually security decided that, this door doesn't work here, because you're walking out into an alley that's going to be, your risk and being poised to be broken into. So something to consider. But when you're talking specifically about what your security compliance is for 935, you have to go into, as you said, Maria, the nitty gritty. You really have to document all of these aspects. You should be able to show through your plan what your access control is going to look like, specifically how you're actually engaging and giving out those credentials, even termination. So the hiring process, the written component, the termination process, how do you get those cards back? If you don't get them back, how are you changing them, and who's changing them? Who has access to the vault? Are you using safe money drops and smart safes at your site and location? Who has access to the cash handling? All of those key factors are important for 935 to document and articulate to the commission, and then also realizing. And then it's also one thing, if you have it written, you also have to follow that now. It's one thing that just to have the paperwork out there and play, but it's a real live document, and you have to understand that. When we were kind of prepping for today, Derek had talked about something where it's like, well, just because you did something 6 months ago or you open your doors doesn't mean that, you're good to go 6 months from now. It's the same thing. Same kind of environment for security. Your risks change, your environment changes. Walk down the street right now and you didn't have a Starbucks maybe down at the corner, 6 months ago or a year ago, right? So that environment changes drastically. And so you have to understand what those risks are involved. Your compliance should be written to that standard. And you should have a security company working with you that's going to have that understanding and really help you protect your assets and your investment and what you're doing.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm going to use that to lead into Dario. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen being approved in terms of vault construction by the CCC?
Yeah, sure. So I've seen anything from wire cages inside of a room that has been approved, from going the whole 9 yards and getting a concrete vault that is from a federal regulation standpoint, concrete walls and ceilings. I've seen it shift from client to client and what the CCC approves. There's no set standard for what vault construction is. I think, it goes hand in hand with the budget of each client and how much they want to have to spend for construction and what that allows. So we've seen across the board varying different types of vault being approved from the CCC. What it looks like when it should go federal, we don't know. It's probably going to be the federal regulations, but for the industry right now, I think that might be a little bit overkill. I've seen some clients do that, but it's a conversation to have with your security vendor. Your insurance company may also have a key say in what type of vault they're going to insure, because we're trying to protect the product. So if you have a line of insurance on your facility and on your product, some insurance company may dictate what vault construction you may have to follow. So it all depends.
Yeah, and to just piggyback off of that, it's important to understand that you want to have those burglary resistance. So those UL levels and those tested modulars, whether it's class M, class 1, even for, those different levels of classes, it's important because the investment goes up substantially as you change those numbers, right? And what you're trying to protect. And then on top of that, this is where, again, having the architect and the security talking from the get-go, if your design and layout has your vault touching the outside exterior wall, you have a problem, right? Yeah. So, we're the guys that think the worst case scenario. And I can assure you that we're looking at ways that we can break into every single place that we go into. And we have been tasked with that many times too. But, you have to understand what that looks like and what that risk is. And that's our job to get there and protect you and your team and your product and again, the cash. So it's important to know all those features ahead of time and not just try to take a guess and say, yep, okay, this is good enough. It just doesn't work.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now, Jillian, from the financial side, what advice do you provide organizations who are entering from legacy to legal? And don't worry, I've got you, Derek. We're gonna get your input on this one as well.
Sure. So, oh goodness, think about it this way: the legacy team, man, they are masterminds. They really are amazing business owners, at least the ones that we've encountered. They're forced to operate under, the radar. They don't want to be seen, so they don't have banking, most of them. And so, the biggest struggle that we encounter with legacy to legal, and the advice I would give them is make sure you're hiring people to go in and take a look at your records, and that they're complete and accurate. We're doing actually 2 big projects right now with legacy to legal. They've both incurred at least $40,000 to $50,000 in our services. I mean, granted, we're going to save them probably at least triple that amount, because there's stuff that's just clearly missing. There's bank activity that hasn't been recorded. One company had 2 years worth of payroll expense that was never recognized. So it's eye-opening. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that claim to be able to do these services, the bookkeeping and accounting, and they don't have the competency. This is hard stuff, especially when you get into cost allocations and looking at cost per unit. Technology, there's limitations there all over the place. So a lot of them are doing it in Excel, or even not even. They know it off the top of their head, right? So we got to back in and come up with all those records and basically build financial statements. So that way we can then hand it off to the tax team. The tax team has to take it back to the beginning of operation. They have to file returns from the get-go. So we're what we call look back. I think forensic, that term's been thrown out there too. So again, hiring the proper team to be able to understand, that we understand the industry, and we have other colleagues that do as well to support these services and do those look backs.
So my takeaway so far is contact everyone on this panel for success. Okay, so Derek, I just want to take a moment and get your kind of personal experience and your input on kind of what happens with records of incarceration, lessons that have been learned, going from black market to, I don't like calling it black market, it's legacy.
Yeah.
We are legacy. Black market's just a bad term.
We're the original operating system. That's why it's legacy, or it's been passed down from families like my situation. So the first thing I tell people that are my friends that are still operating in the legacy market that want to cross over is that, are you sure? Because you're going to have to work a lot harder to make a lot less money, but you'll be able to sleep good at night. So that's the reason I did it. We're in the compliance industry so that we can sell some cannabis. And the very first person that I went to was my lawyer. And if you're in the legacy market and you're operating at any level, you're going to have a good criminal lawyer. That person might not be the person who's going to be able to help you actually get into the legal market, but that's where I started. My lawyer was Tim Flaherty. He's part owner of Western Front. So when I went to him and told him what I wanted to do, he helped me put everything together. And he ended up opening his store just about a month or so before I opened mine. But for me, I'd started with him. I built my team. I had a roadmap, and it was super easy. It only took me about 3 years and $1 million with no guarantee that I could open. About a year into it, I realized that I actually don't even want a dispensary. What I wanted at the time was my own brand. I wanted something that was going to be around when I was long gone. So I do tell a lot of my friends that if you want to get into the industry, figure out exactly what you want to do and what you're good at. So I'm not a good grower. I've actually killed a succulent, for the record. But Once there's a packaged product ready to sell, I'm your guy. I'm sales and marketing. And I have good people who can do the rest for me. So know your lane, know what you want to do. I have a lot of friends that come to me and they all think that they want to grow craft fire. That's fine, as long as you don't want to make any money, because I made way more money selling mids than I did selling fire. That's the problem. And also that's what sells in the legal market too. People want the affordable products, and it's very hard to produce an affordable product at a very small scale. So if you're coming in to make a lot of money, I wouldn't recommend doing craft cannabis. There's not a lot of money in that. So figure out if your point is to make money. I could probably tell you 8 other things outside of the cannabis industry that you can make a lot of money at for a lot less stress, especially if you see what's going on in the current mass market. If you just want to make money, get into a new market that's opening up, grow booth, sell it for top dollar, and then get out once the real competition rises. That's kind of my thing.
That's very good advice, as someone who's kind of watched that as well. Okay, so with that, can you tell me a little bit about what products you've developed under your brand, and kind of, do you have a personal favorite in terms of selling into the market?
So I'm kind of a unique entrepreneur where I work with a lot of different people, and I don't really want to get into who my favorites are or what. And also, when it comes down to products, we're all different, right? So what I like, my girlfriend, she doesn't like spicy food, but I like spicy food. So it really makes no difference what I like. Everybody's unique. So figure out what you like and focus on that.
That's fair enough. And I believe, if I'm right, you are a vertically integrated organization with Trade Roots, yes?
So Trade Roots is the only vertically integrated social equity company in Massachusetts. They're a great organization. I love those guys. Jesse Pitts is another social equity guy who's gone from legacy to legal. So they're known for their craft concentrates. That's what they specialized in. That's where they made their name. Their flower has changed the game. It's really stepped up. They use Terplock bags. They have this window so you can actually see the product before you buy it. One thing I would like to see in the industry a little more is a little more transparency from the retailer to the consumer. Right now, the average consumer goes onto a website, they look at some stock image. If they're lucky, they have a product description. And then when they get to the store, they can't see it, they can't look at it, they can't smell it. They have no idea what they're getting. A lot of the bigger stores that see a lot of volume a day, they're just box pushers. Like I hate it when I go to like Best Buy and I ask an associate something and they have to pick up the box and read the back of it to tell me. That's the same experience that a lot of people get at dispensaries. Cannabis is such a new product for so many people. They're looking for experts to be able to give their knowledge and their opinions, and it's hard to find that. So I'd like the state to step in and help with some of the training costs to do that. And I see that as a great opportunity to help people cross over from legacy to legal. So a lot of people in the legacy market, they don't deserve to be business owners. They're not going to make it in a regulated industry. But if they do have the passion for cannabis. So we could give them a good job and a good career in cannabis if we give them the training. And instead of having to have a company pay for RVT, have that paid for by the state, to give a certified job pool to all of these dispensaries that are looking for good people. I would love to see something like that happen.
I fully agree. And one thing that I've found super helpful when it comes to people kind of learning sales processes is not forgetting where we came from. Whether it was legacy or another job, we've all built skills that can carry into and help make our new operations super successful. Like, we can't forget the skills we've learned everywhere else in the world, and the skills that other people have that kind of get overlooked. Customer experience is definitely one that I see, people are like, oh, that's a minimum wage job. Do you know what kind of skills it takes to sell cannabis effectively?
It's
And with
almost like
knowledge.
being a used car salesman and a doctor, because
Exactly.
if you don't have the knowledge, you can't give a good recommendation. And so you need to be able to ask the right questions, listen to the customer, and use your product knowledge to help a customer. And that's not an easy skill. So a lot of
No.
people look at it like bud tenders are minimum wage entry-level workers, and that's really not the case. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, we are retail, but it's not the same. We're not selling tomatoes or aluminum siding here.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with that, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And for that, I want to move on to Dario. And can you give me a little bit of insight about kind of branding and customer experience from your perspective, and how to make that a more successful portion of people's operations?
Yeah, sure. So for us, our approach is to understand what our client wants to achieve in their dispensary. So again, what is that customer experience? Do you want them to be interacting with your bud tenders on the floor, walking around and getting that education? Do you just want, that experience along with express, returning customers know what they want, how do we make their experience as short as possible because they just want to be in and out. So we listen to what our clients want to achieve, and get that written down to understand how we're going to lay out the space. So all of that comes into, telling the story of the client's brand, as they walk through, as a customer walks through the dispensary. So understanding holistically what the client is trying to achieve, what their overall brand is, the reason why they got into the industry, understanding their why. We try to portray all of that into our design of a dispensary, to make sure it really fits. The materials that we choose fits with their brand. And then understanding that whatever our overall layout is, there is that security factor and other pieces that we have to layer in. So, we don't necessarily want to be too extravagant that it's going to make your security system cost a lot more. So we try to be as simple as possible. So that's how we look at customer experience and brand. Because it's retail, branding refresh every couple of years is useful to do. As time goes on, the brand evolves, and you may want to tell a different story 5 years down the line than what you did when you first started out. So just be cognizant of what your brand is, what it might look like in 5 years, and what you're going to do to refresh your brand in the store. So, plan for improvements in your line items, set aside money to do that refresh because, some finishes may be outdated. You may want to change colors or change a wallpaper here, there, and what's not. So just be mindful of that as you go through your business plan for those renovations and those improvements as your company grows.
Okay. And Shayla, from your perspective, what supports, if any, are there for, say, our equity applicants who are taking into consideration that longer term kind of brand development and experience?
Well, I think for designated equity applicants, there are definitely programs and opportunities available to them that can help with that, and with branding, with protecting their brand, which is actually an interesting caveat because because cannabis is federally illegal, you can't necessarily trademark or like a product, but you can trademark your merchandise. So that is something that entrepreneurs can look into as far as branding is concerned. Of course, you'll need a very knowledgeable legal team to help you with that. But as far as equity applicants, I do think that The state has I know the state has programs that can help that, as well as different municipalities. The city of Boston has a wonderful equity program that does provide consultants and different services to their equity applicants. So I would encourage equity applicants just to look into what programs are available to them. Also, some of the larger cannabis companies are very helpful to equity applicants in that regard and can help with streamlining programming that will ensure their success.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I guess we've kind of avoided a lot of the dirty nitty gritty stuff that nobody really wants to get involved in. They just hire their consultant, say you do this for us. But let's go back to trying to think. Dario, I keep saying that incorrectly. I'm sorry. And Mario, the importance of SOPs when it comes to kind of both of your sides of kind of your lane within an operation when it comes to security and architectural design. Are there any kind of key pieces of advice that you think everyone should be aware of when starting to create their SOP programs? And we will start with Dario, and then Mario, if you can follow up with that as well from a security perspective.
Yep. So for SOPs, they're ever evolving, especially throughout the design process and once you're operational. I think from an architectural standpoint, we look for SOPs to understand how you want to operate your facility, the flow of product through the building, so we can plan rooms and adjacencies accordingly. Something as simple as how your employee arrives at the facility and gowns up before they start work is a critical SOP for us designers to know, so that we can plan the size of your bathrooms and locker rooms and your gowning rooms appropriately. Understanding, if someone has to go to the bathroom, are you gonna force them to degown, go to the bathroom and regown, or are you okay with them going to the bathroom in their scrubs? So contamination plays a big piece in SOPs, and part of us requesting SOPs before we design is so that we can minimize and mitigate any risks that we potentially see in the flow of personnel and product through the facility. So that is how we use that as an initial guide. Once we have a floor plan, obviously the SOPs are going to change based on room placements and better understanding of the facility floor plan. And then once you're operational, they're going to change again. So it's something to start early. It's never too early to start writing your SOPs, but just understand that they'll be evolving as time goes on.
And Mario, from a security perspective, can you give us some insights into the SOPs and the joys of SOPs for security?
Yeah, so everything needs to be spec'd, like Dario said. So they're talking from an operational standpoint. From the security avenue, we're looking at everything from the employee security policies, their personal safety components, their techniques, prevention techniques that we're going to incorporate into either internal theft, external risk. We want to have a clear understanding of what those SOPs are going to look like. Even from an OSHA standpoint, what is that going to look like for safe work practices and how you're actually engaging your employees in safe work practices, and that has to be articulated. Again, it has to be written, but it also has to be followed. So these policies and procedures that we're writing for, that crime prevention, that crime diversion, that's internal and external. And then it also goes from there into emergency procedures. If you have a fire, what does that look like? What's your exits? What's the plan in place and how we're going to get out, save obviously the personnel and staff, but then also, your product and investment. What does that look like? How can we make sure that that's written to your specs and put a plan in place? We just did a project in Buffalo where other headquarters is, and, Buffalo just got hit with a blizzard not too long ago. So these are dialogues there where, you have to think about from the security standpoint, if the power goes out and you have inclement weather and you lose power, Well, the OCM and the commission and doesn't allow your cameras to go out. So where's your backup? That needs to be discussed. You need to have that plan in place. It needs to be articulated. So all of these are from the security standpoint of what we're looking at, and it's the operations to protect your investment and protect you.
And then also, if I can add, SOPs, hand washing, placements of sinks, air showers, all of that stuff factors in on a design standpoint and a mechanical engineering and plumbing standpoint that we all need to factor into a design. It's easier to place a sink early in the design versus having your final walkthrough with the state or the CCC or the local building inspector, and they ask you to install a new hand sink in this location because it's too far from another one. So now you have to dig up your floor. So all of that stuff we look at in your SOPs. And then I think, as the strong topic of, when cannabis is going to go federally legal, GMP comes, there's a lot of talk about GMP and CGMP. And most of that talk for that is based on your SOPs and your record keeping. So the more in depth your SOPs are and the more that you follow your SOPs, the more that you can be, GMP compliant when that comes down the road, or if you choose to follow it now. So just keep that in mind too with your SOPs and building out your facility.
And Derek, as our kind of industry functioning and kind of been through this already a couple times, what is your key piece of advice pertaining to SOPs, development, monitoring them, that you maybe hadn't expected when you were kind of getting started in this operation?
So I've done this multiple times now, and every single time I do it, I think Mike Tyson has the best quote for it. We all have a plan until we get punched in the face. And the cannabis industry has a way of punching you in the face every single time. So as you're sitting here getting excited, thinking about all the money you're going to be making when you finally open up, it's great to write it out and do the best you can. But as soon as you open those doors and you start actually operating with those SOPs, have them printed out. Start writing down the things that you want to change, because there's going to be some. And this is on a routine basis. The industry changes all the time. So have your people write out what they would like to do differently to make the process more efficient. Bubble that up to your compliance and your management team so that everybody gets to have a say as to how things get run. And then once they bubble it back down and you use the new ones, you try it that way for a week, that's when you have new SOPs that you have to submit. Whatever you submit to the CCC is what you have to do, because again, we are in the compliance industry, so we can sell a little cannabis. So if you submit your SOPs and you didn't fully think it out, well, guess what? You're going to have to follow that until you can submit new ones and they approve them. So, do your best to mock transactions before you submit them to make sure this is actually how you want things to work. Everything from receiving inventory to getting it ready for the floor to selling it, and what happens if a customer wants to use a bathroom. So, we think we think of everything, but every situation is different. So you can't just take someone else's SOPs, apply it to your store, and think it's going to work.
Oh, that's great advice.
If I can jump in too, please.
Please do.
It clearly it's a compliance need, but it's an operational need. It's for a backup plan in case your team wins the lottery or goes out sick. There's a reference to what the procedures are, and it's an element also of people's roles and responsibilities. They're going to look to that to understand, what's their part, how are they following them, and internal controls. I know the CCC is asking for internal control detail as well now. So we've been helping write those up, more of a summer level, and then we deep dive as operations progresses. It really is. It's like a deep dive, detailed, step-by-step process. And you really want to have that documented. And like Derek said, it's constant, and Dario, it's constantly evolving, constantly changing. We look at it weekly.
Perfect. So, yes, write it down, follow it. Write it down, follow it. I've never heard somebody say that we're in compliance so that we can sell a little bit of weed, but I really like that. Like, that is a great way of explaining. Because, yeah, I deal with so many people, but it's just a micro, which is what we have in here in Canada for a smaller operation. And you're just like, but it doesn't matter. You're still licensing through a government operation. I don't ever want to hear, but it's just a micro one more time. So now we've only got 10 minutes left here. So anybody who is tuned in today, if you have any questions for anyone on the panel, please put those into the comment section and I'll try and get to those in the next 10 minutes. But what I'm going to do for now until we get some more questions is kind of start at the top. We'll make our way through the list. And if each of you can tell me what you are most excited for when it comes to the future of cannabis in Massachusetts. And let's start at the top with Sheila.
Sure. So the thing I'm most excited for in this industry, for the future of this industry, is seeing equity become real. Right now, it's just a concept. I mean, there are active steps being taken, but I would like to see equity be real, not just in terms of ownership, but also in terms of job opportunities, in terms of seeing cannabis companies take a real or use this opportunity to really make an impact on the communities that have been designated as communities of disproportionate impact. I think there is like an enormous opportunity for these companies to make changes, be it small or something monumental. And with the larger companies, I think they have the opportunity to do something absolutely monumental to change these communities and create pathways for the little kids that are growing up in these impacted communities to become the CEO of a cannabis company, to become the head bud tender at a dispensary. I think there are so many opportunities, and those opportunities can lead people outside of the cannabis industry as well. So I really just can't wait to see the industry dig deep and figure out how to make sure that what benefits a few benefits everyone, especially the people that were harmed by the war on drugs. So that is what I'm most looking forward to.
Excellent. Thank you. And Jillian, what are you most excited to see?
It's happening right now, actually. These big MSOs are obviously have toxified the industry. And what I'm really excited about is I see my clients working with, bigger companies, and there's partnership, there's collaboration, there's cooperation. They're helping each other with supply chain issues, and they're supporting each other, and it's just so wonderful. It gives me the warm and fuzzies. I really appreciate it. So, and I'm sure that'll continue because, this plan is so amazing, and it should not be, like I said, mass produced, and it should be given the tender loving care it deserves, because then the quality is there. And it's really tough in this mass market to find what I want to consume. It's really difficult, and not be able to touch and smell. And so I'm really excited about that. Like, go team.
Yay. And Mario, can you tell us a little bit about what you're most excited to see?
Yeah, honestly, I think we were talking again before today, and it's come out that the industry now in Massachusetts, it's a $4 billion market. I think it's grown $1 billion in the last year. And that sounds great on paper. It sounds great in theory, but I think there's more work to be done. You can see in the comments, there's a question that we're going to have to kick back to Shayla, but talking about how we value the social equity and the applicants, and how we can get local governments to buy in. I think the reality is that what I'm looking forward to in the future is the opportunity as a minority-owned firm to be more actively involved in getting the social equity applicants and social equity opportunities that I think have kind of gone by the wayside. We have a lot of doors that we want to be knocking on, and I promised myself I wouldn't swear, but my goal is to kick those doors down rather than knock on them. And so that's really what I'm looking forward to. I think there's a ton of opportunities to work together and collaborate. The industry is at its peak, I think, and really just on a trajectory upwards. Just saw in the comments Joyce saying 5 billion. Sorry, I misspoke. But there's an opportunity, I think, for the future that we have opportunities to give them a market, protect their investments, and not become just a one-off kind of thing. And I think that's the goal here for us as an organization as a whole.
Thank you. And Dario,
So
what are you excited about?
I think I echo a lot of Mario and Jill's sentiments about social equity. There's something that I'm trying to achieve with the firm I'm working at of, assisting more and more social equity applicants as I possibly can do with, the support of my company. Whether large or small, we're here to help, and I'm willing to use my experience, that I've gained these last couple of years to really educate and give back to the community that has been underrepresented so much since the cannabis industry has become legal in Massachusetts. So that is what I'm looking forward to. And then also how social consumption is going to be rolled out in the state, and how social equity is going to play into that, and what that's going to look like.
Thank you. The whole consumption thing just leads to a whole other world of businesses that can be supported, as well as potentially cannabis tourism becomes something as well. So I'm really excited to see that as well. It's something that's highly restricted here in Canada. So I'll be making lots of trips down. Now, Jenna, can you give me a little bit of insight into what you're most excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. I always, anytime any state or jurisdiction does social consumption, I'm always excited and looking forward to see how that's going to roll out, from just designing to operations, what's going to be on offer, how it's regulated. It's an exciting concept. Just, it's a social hub for people to come together, consume together. I think it also helps to just expand general acceptance, to get more awareness for the industry as well as a whole. So I'm always excited to see those roll out. And I also want to second on top of Dario and Shayla, I think that social equity is a priority and a responsibility of the cannabis industry as a whole. And I would like to see, programs that not only work, but to see equity businesses thrive in the market. So there's, more work to be done, but I'd like to see that going forward in the state.
Excellent. And Derek?
So, I am a social equity applicant, and I'm happy that we have a program. But to be honest with you, it hasn't helped me much, and a lot of other people in my same situation. If we want to be honest, home delivery is a joke. The two driver rule and everything. You can't make any money doing it. They took something that nobody wanted, and they said, okay, we're going to let social equity people have this for a couple years and think that that's going to cut it. And it's simply not enough. We need to change the regulations. We need, if you're really being serious, we need things to help people get into the industry, and the social equity programs and the things that it's not real. It doesn't have any meat on the bone. So I'd like to see some of the rules change on that. And I'm really looking forward to social consumption. We've sold now $5 billion worth of cannabis, but unless if you own your home, there's no place to legally smoke. I have a feeling that when we roll social consumption out here, they're not going to let us sell any flower in there. You're not going to be able to consume flower in the building. The rules that they're going to try to handcuff us on are going to basically handicap us. And it's not until the big guys get into the home delivery and the social equity, when they have the lobbyists, that they can pay the politicians to make the rules that will work for them. But until then, they're going to make it look like they're doing something for us, but in reality, they're not helping us.
Okay. So we've gotten a lot of different opinions. We're just coming up on an hour now. So Chayla, if you don't mind, can we squeeze in one more question that comes from Daniel Delaney here in the chat? And they were hoping to hear a little bit more about how to speak to municipalities about valuing that social equity. We do know that some communities are a little bit more restrictive or resistant to this evolution than others. Do you have any advice on how to speak to them and engage them in these conversations for meaningful participation?
I do. I think now we're 5 years into recreational legalization in Massachusetts. So I think a lot of municipalities are, not only municipalities, but residents are really resistant because they still have the images in their mind with these long, massive lines of consumers waiting for the dispensaries to open. And even though as time has progressed, we've seen that these lines are starting to dwindle. People aren't waiting, for cannabis. We've got, you can purchase it online and things like that. So I think some of it is just positioning what the industry actually looks like versus what they have in their imagination. But I also think that there is some grassroots lobbying that can be done amongst smaller entrepreneurs and cannabis enthusiasts. I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be, an MSO coming in and lobbying the state or the state for legislation that suits them. I think also smaller entities have an opportunity to sit down with regulators, sit down with their local representatives and politicians, and have a real conversation about what it is that they're trying to achieve. Having been on the regulatory side at for a municipality, not everybody, but we do listen and we do welcome and encourage those kind of conversations. So I don't think that there's anything standing in your way other than, the only thing you have to lose is a little bit of time and not a great deal of time in trying to have a conversation. The worst thing they can say is no. And we're already at no in some of these municipalities, but engaging the regulators, having a conversation and drawing a vivid picture for them so they can understand what it is you're trying to achieve, and not the stereotypical crazy cannabis world that everybody imagines.
Okay, thank you very much.
Marie, before we end,
yes,
can I pop
absolutely.
in on one more thing? I just wanted to say one other thing really quickly.
Please do.
With regards to the future too, there's another aspect that I think is kind of undervalued for the social equity component, or at least for the municipalities that are pushing back, and that's innovation. I think there's a strategy. You can't see the bottom of my T-shirt, but it has innovation over intimidation. We've coined this phrase, and that's our objective right now. I think there's an opportunity to use technology, use design layouts from the architects and the specs, and be so inclusive that it's not an intimidating factor in the neighborhoods and communities that we're all going to be in. And I think the more that we can leverage those pieces, the future is brighter for all of us. You get better buy-in for the municipalities, and then you also get the opportunity that you can have a really sleek design, you have a great business, and then you're also being safe in that same process. And I think that's something that's completely undervalued at the moment. But I just wanted to just share that because I think that's something that is just kind of completely overlooked in the industry as a whole. It doesn't have to be this hard, design layout and, bars over the windows and all this other those days are long over. And you have the opportunity to do some really good stuff with, some strategies and innovation. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. We have run over the 1 hour today. While I could sit and ask questions all day of this panel because they have minds I want to suck all their information from, we are going to have to wrap up today. Please, if anyone does have any additional questions or would like to get in contact with any of the panelists, please feel free to email the email address at the bottom of your screen, and we will ensure that they are passed along to the appropriate person, and you will be contacted. And again, I'd like to thank everyone for your time in attending and listening to this fantastic panel. And I would like to thank all of our fantastic panel. Sorry, I'm looking at two screens and I keep noticing I'm not looking at you guys. I am, just not in a visible way. So yes, thank you all for joining. Thank you for sharing your insights and your advice. And I do hope to speak to you all again at various events and panels in the future.